Captain Riley Martinez had walked into diplomatic disasters before, but never quite like this one. The embassy doors slid open with their usual hydraulic hiss, revealing what should have been a formal reception chamber prepared for the most important first contact in human history. Instead, she found herself staring at Princess Lyra of the Celestial Empire in what could only be described as a state of elegant panic. The alien princess stood frozen beside an overturned ceremonial table, her 6 arms desperately attempting to simultaneously gather scattered crystalline documents, adjust her formal headdress, and smooth down robes that sparkled like captured starlight. Her normally composed violet features showed an expression Riley had never seen in any of the intelligence briefings: complete mortification. "Ambassador Martinez," Princess Lyra began, her melodic voice carrying the slight tremor of someone caught entirely off guard. "I was not expecting your arrival for another solar cycle." Riley glanced at her chronometer, then back at the princess. The meeting was scheduled for exactly this moment, down to the minute. Protocol demanded she pretend not to notice the chaos, but something about the princess's obvious distress struck her as deeply human, despite the obvious differences in their species. "Your Highness," Riley said, stepping forward with a slight smile, "perhaps I could assist you with those documents?" The offer clearly surprised Princess Lyra even further. Her large, luminescent eyes widened, and 2 of her arms paused mid-motion. In the intelligence reports, the Celestial Empire had been described as a rigid hierarchy, where offering help to a superior would be considered deeply insulting. Riley held her breath, wondering if she had just created an interstellar incident before the real negotiations had even begun. Instead, Princess Lyra's expression softened into something that looked remarkably like relief. "That would be most appreciated, Ambassador. I fear my preparation time was somewhat optimistic." As Riley bent to help gather the fallen crystal tablets, she noticed they were covered in what appeared to be notes, written in both celestial script and broken English. The princess had been studying human customs, trying to prepare for this meeting with the same nervous energy Riley had seen in diplomats before their first major assignment. "These notes are quite thorough," Riley observed, carefully stacking the tablets. "You've done considerable research on human diplomatic protocols." Princess Lyra's cheeks took on a deeper shade of violet. "I wish to ensure I did not inadvertently cause offense. Your species has such specific customs regarding personal space and eye contact. I have been practicing the appropriate human greeting gestures for days." Riley looked up from the documents, struck by the genuine concern in the princess's voice. Here was the heir to an empire that spanned 12 star systems, worried about whether she would shake hands correctly. "Your Highness, may I share something with you?" Riley asked, settling the last of the crystal tablets on the restored table. "I spent 3 weeks practicing how to properly bow in your presence without falling over. Apparently, human balance isn't quite designed for the 17-degree angle your protocols specify." The admission drew what Riley could only describe as a giggle from Princess Lyra. The sound was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, and completely at odds with the formal dignity expected of royalty from either of their species. "You practiced bowing?" Princess Lyra asked, her composure beginning to return along with her sense of humor. "I must confess, I have been rehearsing handshakes. My advisors were quite concerned about the proper pressure to apply without causing injury." "Well," Riley said, extending her hand with a grin, "shall we test your technique?" Princess Lyra looked at the offered hand with the concentration of someone defusing a bomb. She carefully extended one of her 6 arms, her fingers longer and more delicate than human hands, but surprisingly warm to the touch. The handshake was gentle, perfectly calibrated, and lasted exactly the 3 seconds specified in human diplomatic guidelines. "Excellent form, Your Highness," Riley said. "Though between us, most humans wouldn't notice if you held on a second longer or used slightly more pressure. We're generally less fragile than your briefings probably suggested." "Truly?" Princess Lyra asked, her relief evident. "The reports made human beings sound quite delicate. I was terrified of accidentally causing harm through improper greeting protocols." Riley laughed, a warm sound that seemed to put the princess further at ease. "Your Highness, my species once convinced an entire galaxy that we were dangerous enough to avoid simply because we're the only known sapient species that evolved from persistence hunters. I think we can handle a firm handshake. Persistence hunters? Princess Lyra's scientific curiosity was clearly piqued. I read about this concept, but the translation was unclear. You literally ran your prey to exhaustion? Among other things, Riley nodded. We're remarkably difficult to discourage once we decide we want something. It served us well in exploration, though I imagine it could be concerning from a diplomatic perspective. Princess Lyra considered this for a moment, her head tilted, in a gesture that was remarkably similar to human contemplation despite her very different facial structure. Actually, Ambassador, I find it rather reassuring. Reassuring? The Celestial Empire has many beautiful qualities, Princess Lyra said, moving to gaze out the large viewport that showed the swirling nebula beyond the station. But we have perhaps become too comfortable, too set in our ways. We have not faced a real challenge in centuries. Your species represents something we have not encountered before, a people who do not give up easily. Riley joined her at the viewport. And that doesn't concern you? On the contrary, Princess Lyra replied, turning to face Riley with the expression of genuine warmth. I believe my people could learn much from yours about determination and resilience. Perhaps this cultural exchange will benefit both our species more than either of us anticipated. As they stood together watching the stars wheel slowly past the viewport, Riley reflected on how different this first contact had been from every simulation and scenario her team had prepared for. None of their models had accounted for the simple power of two people, regardless of species, finding common ground in shared nervousness and mutual respect. Your Highness, Riley said finally, I think this is going to be the beginning of a very interesting friendship between our peoples. Princess Lyra smiled, an expression that seemed to light up her entire face. I believe you are correct, Ambassador Martinez, and please call me Lyra. I suspect formal protocols may be less important than we both assumed. Riley smiled back, thinking that perhaps the most important diplomatic breakthrough had already happened in the simple moment when two very different people chose to help each other rather than stand on ceremony.